The film opens in 1950 with James Wright arriving at the Edo dojo. As he steps inside, he observes students diligently training and demands to speak with the master about a man whose photograph hangs prominently on the wall. The master recounts how his father had shared tales of this man's indomitable fighting spirit and his controversial fighting style, warning James that his presence at the dojo has brought trouble and dishonor to his family. In a show of force, the master commands his students to confront James. With remarkable speed and skill, he defeats them all in mere seconds. The master, now intrigued, asks James to explain the purpose of his visit. The narrative then shifts back to 1942 amidst the turmoil of World War II in the Battle of Baton. Here, we find James Wright, a decorated British wing commander serving with the Allied forces. Caught in the chaos of a collapsing front, the relentless Japanese advance overwhelms the Allied troops. And during an air engagement, James's aircraft is struck down. He crashes deep into enemy territory, barely surviving the impact, only to find himself surrounded by Japanese soldiers, blooded and battered. He summons his remaining strength to fend them off, but despite his fierce resistance, he is ultimately captured and taken to a grim P camp where conditions are inhumane. Within this brutal camp, he encounters Lieutenant Colonel Ito, who underestimates him and orders Corporal Hiano and other trusted men to take James into the forest and execute him. However, in a desperate act of survival, James fights back fiercely and kills his captors. After dispatching them, he makes a frantic escape into the jungle where he discovers one of their aircraft. Just as he begins to search for a way out of enemy territory, he falls victim to one of their jungle traps and is recaptured. Brought back to face Ido, Lieutenant Colonel Ido confiscates some of James's important belongings and ominously promises him death by the following day. In the prison camp, James meets fellow prisoners from various nations, including hardened American Marines, Filipino resistance fighters, and other Allied servicemen. The next day, Ido prepares for a fight to the death, pitting James against a towering, half-starved prisoner. Although James emerges victorious, the hollow triumph leaves him haunted by the heavy toll of survival. Later, Ido's second-in-command seeks permission to eliminate James once and for all. Yet Ioto refuses, insisting that James's time will come soon enough. Meanwhile, James is summoned by Ido's men at their commander's behest and taken to Ido's office, where the true extent of his fate hangs in the balance. In the depths of the prison camp, James encounters a woman named Teresa, who has been captured and forced to serve as a nurse for the Japanese soldiers. Curious about James's formidable fighting skills, Lieutenant Colonel Ido questions him about the source of his training in the most forbidden techniques. However, James remains tight-lipped about his master, refusing to divulge any information. In a chilling display of power, Ido threatens him with death by the next day and commands his men to take him away. The following morning, James is dragged back to the makeshift fighting arena where he faces off against other prisoners in brutal combat. Yeah. Oh, my God. Amidst the despair of their confinement, James devises a daring plan to steal a radio from the Japanese soldiers and call for help. During their daily labor, he and his fellow prisoners create a diversion, drawing the guards away from their posts. Seizing the opportunity, James manages to pill for the radio. The next day, Lieutenant Colonel Ito convenes a meeting to remind the prisoners that any attempt to escape will be met with severe punishment. To underscore his point, he publicly punishes those he suspects of harboring escape plans. Undeterred, James resolves to break free that very night. He slips into the jungle, meticulously scouting for a location where he could potentially make contact for support. As he explores, Japanese soldiers conduct a routine check of the prison to ensure all prisoners are accounted for. Thanks to James's cleverness, his shoes in bed saves him, allowing him to evade detection. Upon returning, he shares his findings with the other prisoners, emphasizing the need for someone who can communicate in code to reach out to American forces. The following day, Ito summons James once more, this time probing whether he understands Navajo and Indian languages that might have been heard near their territory. James feigns ignorance, which only serves to infuriate Ido. In a fit of rage, Ido declares that no prisoner will ever see their family again. He then binds James to poles and orders several men to beat him mercilessly. After inflicting serious injuries, Ido releases him but commands James to fight for his life run. Blooded and battered, James manages to triumph over his opponent. However, in a cruel twist, Ido executes several prisoners and instructs his second-in-command to knock James unconscious. When James regains consciousness, he finds himself bandaged and attended to by Teresa, who explains that he is the first prisoner to receive such special treatment, an indication of his luck amidst their dire circumstances. Once he has recovered, James returns to the prison with renewed determination. He rallies the other prisoners, urging them to remain strong as their escape plan draws near. They inform him that during his unconsciousness, a document signed by General Douglas MacArthur warned all Japanese forces holding PS that an attack was imminent. This revelation ignites a new sense of hope in James, and that very night, they attempt to execute their communication plan. Unfortunately, their efforts are thwarted by tight security. One of the Japanese soldiers spotted them, and in a brutal act of desperation, they killed him. However, just as they were about to retreat, a junior soldier appeared. James, showing unexpected mercy, ordered his men not to harm the young soldier, thereby sparing his life as they hurried back to their prison. When the guards conducted their routine check, they found every prisoner tucked in their beds, seemingly undisturbed. The following day, Lieutenant Colonel Ido summoned everyone for another meeting. He accused one of James's men of attacking his soldiers and demanded to know the identities of those who had assisted him. Stepping forward, James claimed responsibility for the attack, insisting that he had acted alone and killing the guards. Confused by James's boldness, Ido called another prisoner to the front and ordered James to execute him with a forbidden fighting move. James refused to comply, prompting Ido to order the execution of the innocent man instead. In a subsequent fight, James' friend managed to emerge victorious against his opponent. But Ido then summoned James to his office. There, James challenged Ido to a duel. But Ido denied him the opportunity and instead sent him away to perform laborious prison tasks. While working, James gathered his men and informed them that they needed to send a signal later that night. As darkness fell, they set their plan in motion, going out with one of their own who had knowledge of radio coding to contact for help. Spirits lifted. They provided their location and waited anxiously for rescue. However, upon going back at the prison, they found it empty and were promptly arrested and knocked unconscious. Upon regaining consciousness, they were met with chaos as their camp came under attack. In the midst of the turmoil, Teresa and her friend Anna rushed in to rescue them. They immediately checked for their stolen radio, only to find it destroyed. The attackers began slaughtering everyone in sight without mercy. In a moment of clarity, James devised a new plan to steal another radio. Teresa took decisive action, teaming up with Anna to eliminate a guard. Fueled by anger and a thirst for vengeance, the prisoners rallied against their captors who fought back fiercely. Nice. Come on. Just before their escape attempt could unfold, James confronted Ido in his office once more, challenging him to a fight. Nobody is running. Just as he was about to finish off, one of James' men intervened, taking him away. Ido's second-in-command started to fire at them. Ido stepped in to halt the chaos, allowing James and his comrade to escape. Eventually, they reached their destination and signaled the Americans, who responded swiftly by neutralizing their attackers and aiding their escape from enemy territory. In present day, back at the dojo, the master dismissed his students and confronted James for a fight. After a fierce exchange, James defeated him, but then requested that he demonstrate the forbidden move his father had often spoken about. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a wonderful day.